All right, y'all. I got on my lawyer hat. Let's talk about lawyer things. Today, let's unpack what's happening with Brendan Sorsby. You might have heard today is May 26th that the NCAA has permanently declared that he is ineligible to play college sports anymore. And that's associated with the gambling back at the University of Indiana back in 2022 when he gambled and placed bets on the football team while he was on the football team. Now, his attorneys sued the NCAA on May 18th, asking for a temporary and a permanent injunction to allow him to play this last year. And they did that for a couple of reasons. First of all, because the NCAA was dragging its feet and had not made a determination around eligibility, which they knew was likely going to be exactly what the NCAA did. Okay? So there is a hearing set on June 1st for that, and the judge has no degrees from Texas Tech, so there'll be no home cooking from that perspective. It's also important to note that the NFL Supplemental Draft is on June 22nd. Now, if you were like me, you never even heard of the NFL Supplemental Draft, and that's in part because no one has been drafted in the NFL Supplemental Draft since 2019. So, not a good option. But here we are, okay? But clearly, if Mr. Sorsby is not going to be able to play football with Texas Tech, he wants to try his hand at the NFL. So let's quickly recall the facts. First, he took immediate leave of absence when he was found out in April 2025 about the gambling addiction. And he went into treatment, okay? Into treatment immediately, okay? Now, it's not in dispute that in 2022, he placed bets on Indiana games while he was on the team. We know that is not in dispute anymore because his attorneys admitted that in the filing they made to the court seeking the preliminary and permanent injunction. Okay? Now, so not dispute. He made the bets. Okay? He also made thousands of bets using gambling apps on his phone. So that's the whole betting story. You also know that he transferred to Texas Tech. He hit the portal in January of this year, transferred for reportedly a deal worth $5 million, leaving Cincinnati. Cincinnati had a deal with him that was supposed to run through this football season in 2026. And Cincinnati's agreement said, if you leave and hit the portal, you owe us a $1 million buyout. Cincinnati is suing him because Mr. Sorsby just said, I ain't paying it. Okay. So that's the backstory. That catches you up. Okay. Now, it's important to know that the rule with the NCAA is really strong on this. If you bet on your own team, you are presumptively have permanently lost eligibility. And so they presume that you have done it and you are gone. Okay. Permanent loss. That's the rule. Okay. Now, his attorneys conceded that he gambled on Indiana games, but in an attempt to curry favor, they indicated because he was lonely. He was on the scout team. He felt disconnected. And so that made him feel a part of the team. Okay. You can do with whatever you want with that characterization. Okay. But they suggest that since he bet on his own team to win, nobody got hurt. And so there were no integrity issues. And this matter of integrity is important to how this whole analysis occurs. Though it's important to note that from the NCAA's perspective, betting on your own team is an integrity violation in and of itself. Okay. So since nobody got hurt, okay, he should be fine. He has an addiction. This is what the attorneys are arguing in the filing. He has an addiction which should be treated and not penalized. Certainly, we respect the fact that Mr. Sorsby should be treated for an addiction. He has successfully completed his inpatient program, and he is now returning to Lubbock, to Texas Tech, to be on campus. Okay, so they're also saying that there should be no harm, no foul, because, you know, the NCAA is being critical because the NCAA has a relationship with Genius Sports so that the public can bet on collegiate sports. So it's hypocritical for the NCAA to say, hey, athletes, you can't bet, but everybody else can. Okay, hypocrisy is not a part of the test. So I appreciate that is hypocritical, but it is not part of the test. They also say it should be no harm, no foul, because he didn't bet on Indiana once he got off the scout team. So once he became the backup QB, he never bet on him again. He was feeling lonely. Okay. So no harm, no foul is what they are arguing in the claim. Now, he flat out bet on Indiana games while he was a player. But, because Sorsby is such the good human, according to the filing, he should only receive a slap on the wrist. Okay? Because once he got found out by the NCAA, he admitted it. That's important because there's some factors later on that we're going to talk about, and this is one of the factors. Okay? The other thing he did was he checked himself into rehab. Also one of the factors that the NCAA looks at around reinstatement of an athlete who has lost eligibility. Okay. And, he offered himself up as a penalties. So he agreed to he offered himself to be suspended for 2 games, to continue treatment after his release, to take gambling education classes, and to be the NCAA poster child for the dangers of gambling. Okay. So continuing the treatment and taking these gambling classes, also on this reinstatement plan. Okay. Or things you can do to help get yourself reinstated. And of course, he should only get a slap on the wrist because he's supposed to make a whole lot of money and he's going to be harmed if he's not able to make that money and play football in his last year. Okay. Now, to add on to that, so those are the things that they laid out, which are factors around reinstatement. The other thing is the Texas Tech president just today released a letter to the Texas Tech community and praised Sorsby's bravery. We agree. Okay. And stated that Texas Tech's priority was on his health and well-being. Of course, me being snarky would also say, which of course in their mind can only be achieved if he is reinstated so he can play football for Texas Tech. But that's just me being snarky. Okay. Now, the president also laid out all these things, this coordinated, comprehensive, and thoughtful plan for Sorsby once he returns to campus, which includes ongoing outpatient care. Told you about these factors, okay? Group and individual therapy, mentoring, treatment for related anxiety disorder, monitoring of his devices, blocking betting sites from his devices, a custodian to oversee his finances, and he'll undergo compliance checks. So Texas Tech's president is like, look at all the things that we are doing to help him be successful. Also mitigators as they're trying to get him reinstated. And he's also said that, yes, we are going to appeal this permanent loss of eligibility because we believe that he should in fact be reinstated. Of course, his attorneys think he should be reinstated. Mr. Sorsby himself thinks he should be reinstated, and Texas Tech thinks he should be reinstated. What does the NCAA think? Okay. Well, here's the problem. September 2025, NCAA gave complete loss of eligibility to 3 players, a couple from Fresno State, another for San Jose State, for betting on their own games. In these cases, they engaged in some prop bets. That's just not good. Okay. 3 players, permanent loss of eligibility. In November 2025, players from New Orleans, Mississippi Valley, Arizona State also bet on their own games, included some prop bets, complete permanent loss of eligibility. Okay. And so you might say, oh, that's because this is what, his attorneys are arguing. He didn't make prop bets. He didn't fix games. So no harm, no foul. But there's always one. So the case that is most analogous to Brendan Sorsby is Hunter Dekker. Hunter Dekker was the Iowa State quarterback. He bet on a game involving his own team in 2021. The NCAA stripped him of his remaining eligibility permanently. The Iowa State filed 2 appeals. They were both denied. He did not receive his eligibility back. And those facts are the most analogous to Mr. Sorsby. Okay, so I indicated to you that there's this reinstatement approach. And so there's this multi-step analysis that the NCAA goes through to determine if reinstatement of eligibility is important. And it goes in order. So you got to go through each gate. Okay. And the gate either helps you to support a claim for reinstatement, or it hurts you, where it says you should not be reinstated. The first item is the type of conduct, and betting on your own team is the most severe. Loss of eligibility almost always happens. Matter of fact, in the case of always happens when you bet on your own team. That does not work in Mr. Sorsby's favor. Okay. Number 2, the second factor. Okay. In order of importance, was it on purpose? He bet on games intentionally. He knew what he was doing. It wasn't an accident. He didn't slip up. Most severe penalty. That does not help his claim for reinstatement. Number 3, how much was wagered and how frequently? He wagered thousands of dollars. In the NCAA analysis, they got an $800 threshold. Okay, so just a little bit of money, that's minor. He's got thousands of dollars. He's wagered how much and how frequently. Repeatedly, thousands of bets, thousands of dollars, most severe, does not work in his favor. So we got 3 factors, none of which support reinstatement at this point. Okay, number 4, was it on his own team or own sport? So if it's on your own sport, but a different school, it's less severe. If it's on your own team, it's more severe. Again, this factor works against reinstatement for Mr. Sorsby. Number 5, was there harm? There was none here. Okay, so that works in his favor. But we got the first 4, that's the most severe. Number 5, we finally get a little bit of relief. Number 6, how did the athlete behave after the violation? Did he cooperate? Did he accept responsibility? In this case, yes, he did. And therefore, that works in favor of Mr. Sorsby. Okay. Number 7, was he willing to enter into or to get rehabilitation? In this case, he was. That works in Mr. Sorsby's favor. Remember, I told you all those things that the Texas Tech president said, all those things that his lawyer said about he immediately cooperated once he was found out. He immediately went into rehab. Here's all the things we're going to do to make him better. Okay, trying to build this case on these lower tier factors. Now, next, institutional oversight. This is just binary. It either helps you or it's not helpful at all. Okay. Did the institution share fault in knowing about this or not having the right protocols in place? The institution shared no fault. The institution had the right systems in. There's no discussion about Indiana and Cincinnati and what they did, but Texas Tech has no fault. It neither helps nor hurts Mr. Sorsby. Number 9, is there an ability to restore the status quo? This is really about, can we put him back in the position he was in before all this happened? Can you have a softer penalty? Can you make it less severe than this permanent loss of eligibility? Well, clearly you always could, but what are the factors here that would support that? So I think that nothing supports making a softer penalty. And finally, okay, they always look at prior precedent. What have we done in similar facts in similar situations? And in this case, Mr. Dekker's facts are immediately on point. Iowa State QB, who bet on a game involving his own team in 2021. His appeals were denied, lost eligibility. That does not work in Mr. Sorsby's favor. Okay, so you got all these factors. Everybody's trying to line up all these things on these lower level factors that support reinstatement, whereas the top level factors do not support reinstatement. So he's trying to get a permanent injunction so he can continue to play football. But first he needs to get a temporary injunction. I think he's not going to get either one because I think that the harm to the defendant is greater than the harm to the plaintiff. I think that the NCAA has a track record of saying we defend these kinds of suits aggressively. Okay. And if you, court, now say it is okay for a single individual to bet on games and still get to play football, you are opening up the floodgates for all these people who have done so. So I think that the NCAA will not lose on this ruling on this preliminary injunction. I think Mr. Sorsby and his team knows that is the likely result, that they're unlikely to win. First, they're unlikely to win an appeal with the NCAA based on the Dekker case, Iowa State QB. I think they're unlikely to get a temporary or permanent injunction. And I think he likely knows this. But, we recall Wayne Gretzky, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So I think they're just trying to shoot the shot and see how it comes out. Anyway, that's a lot, but that unpacks the whole thing that's happening with Sorsby and why the case is going on and what they hope to achieve. And here we go. I wish the best for him. I think the facts do not line up in his favor to get reinstated, but we shall see. As always, let me know what you think.